There we go. It's the intro. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Arm Wrestling tonight. This is Hollywood Matt Connelly with the double biceps. It is in the contract and legal requirement every single time we appear on camera. We are appearing on camera right this minute. The man to my left could be to your right, depending on what sort of screen you are looking at. Hopefully, it is the screen with the pictures on it and not the battery side. If it is, turn it around because you are going to see the co-host, the co-founder, the co-wearer of clothes, the co-breather of air in this virtual room. It is the master of disaster, the king of sting, the count of Monte Cristo, the Siberian bull. It is your friend and mine. It is the winner of the Dave Stockbridge of the Year award, the illustrious award held by the illustrious man with the illustrious beard. It is none other than Dave Stockbridge. Stockbridge, welcome to the show.
Hollywood Connelly, so good to be back with you. Exciting things happening in the back rooms, in the corridors at AWE headquarters over the last little while, and as the machinations of arm wrestling here at AWE go, there has been lots of toiling, lots of hard work, lots of deals being made, lots of rubber stamping happening in the background in order to make this big machine keep moving forward for a big 2025 and beyond. And we've got we've got a big announcement. We can confirm on the podcast tonight in the not too distant future. And congrats, Jansen. We'd like to say that first and foremost.
That's right, David Jansen getting the first comment of the night award. Well done to you, sir. Normally you come in right near the end when we're about to finish, but you got in first in best dressed.
Well done. You get the Matt Connelly double bicep award for first in best dressed. There we go. There it is. That's for you, Daniel. Well done. So big news. So we'll get onto that in a little while. Of course, we'll cover off on some of the bigger events that are happening. King of the Table is coming up this weekend. We'll talk about some of the things we'd like to see changed in arm wrestling, as well as some of the things, if we were the autocratic dictators of the arm wrestling world, that we would implement immediately for the betterment of the sport. And Hollywood Matt Connelly, I know you've got a lot of ideas when it comes to how we can make this sport more watchable, more profitable, and ultimately the sport that every man and woman in the world wants to watch.
Absolutely. It was interesting having a good chat with Tim Graham the other day on the podcast here, and we were talking about the difference in rule sets and his refereeing, because he's refereed the majority of our events. And we were talking about, it's funny going to the YouTube videos afterwards, and there's always a few comments in there being very critical of the refereeing, and they don't understand that we're not running under the same rule set as WAF or as East versus West. We're running under the AWE rule set, which is more loose rules, and it's more designed to be watchable and entertaining, which is exactly what we wanted Tim to do, is exactly what he did do. And so from our perspective, his refereeing was fantastic, and we got some incredible matches out of that because of those differences in refereeing styles that we implemented with our rule set. So it is such a difference between looking at, say, the European style, which is so strict on setups and elbow fouls, micro stuff, lots of restarts, lots of foul outs, incredibly boring to watch from my opinion.
Well, it is, and there's a reason why people don't watch it. I mean, arm wrestling's been around for a very long time now, and you know, a lot longer than television's been around, and yet it does seem that style of arm wrestling, there's a reason why it hasn't made itself onto the TV screens of the major sporting networks around the world. When you see the sport in that stop-start mode, it's very difficult to watch, but it's also even harder as an arm wrestling fan to encourage your friends to watch it. Like, what an awful introduction to the sport it would be to watch the WAF World Championships, for instance. Like, yeah, come over, guys, bring some beers. I'll make sure we've got the Doritos and the popcorn ready to go. We're going to sit down and watch 8 hours of setup and fouls. That's your introduction to the sport. There you go.
Ah.
So very, very difficult. Now I know there's purists out there, and I'll go, oh yes, but that's just the way it's always been and the way it should be. And I think that's fine, and I think there should be a version of that sport. And there's no doubt that there is a place for that, but I think what we have to acknowledge right now is if we ever want the sport to be commercially successful, it has to encourage money into it. And encouraging money into the sport means attracting eyeballs. And not only attracting the eyeballs of the curious, but maintaining their attention once they're here. Because it's one thing being a sport on the internet that might be able to be, watched with a flick, like say the slap, it captures the attention on social media. It gets you to watch it, for a few minutes there, and then it's gone, and it's out of your mind. But there's not a lot of money in that. There's not a lot of money in that. If you can only maintain the attention of people for a very short period of time, unfortunately, it's never going to build broader support. It's never going to have a TV platform. And like it or not, pay-per-views are not the way forward. We're at saturation point with pay-per-views. We've seen almost all the matches now. It's musical chairs, the super matches that are going on in the sport right now. You're seeing that in the numbers. We know if Devon's not on the card, it's very difficult for them to sell a pay-per-view. It's tough going. The pay-per-view merry-go-round is starting to slow. So in order for the sport to actually enjoy success, it has to be serially available in a watchable format that is commercially viable. And commercially viable means in a half hour or an hour long format. And that is not what we're seeing in the sport right now. The leaders of the sport at the moment are not seeing the writing on the wall. The people that are investing the money into the promotions are not seeing the writing on the wall. They are running a failed format that will continue to fail, that only succeeds with the injection of big money who are willing to donate in order to have influence. So this is something the sport has to recognize. Now, what I'll also say is one thing with Tim Graham is that he's willing to get into the comments and mix it up with anybody. So if you're going to shit on his refereeing skills, he's going to absolutely stand up for himself. And you'll see that in the AWE video where he does go through and he just cautions people and advises them that this is not a WAF event. This is not King of the Table even. This is not East versus West. This is not what this is AWE. This is absolutely tailored for TV consumption, essentially. And that's what we're all about. We're about those eyeballs. And understandably, we don't have all the resources here at AWE. We don't have the huge sponsors involved. We are literally throwing this together on a shoestring budget. We're doing our absolute best with limited resources. But what we are doing is we're tinkering away at a formula and a style of arm wrestling that we hope evolves into something that serves as a template for being commercially successful. Why? Because our mantra from the get-go has always been making the sport viable for athletes to make a living from. And athletes cannot make a living from the sport in its current format and structure. They can't. East versus West can't put somebody on a full-time payroll. They can't say to any of these guys, come and earn $200,000 a year, arm wrestling guys, quit your jobs tomorrow. They can't. And that is the biggest promotion in the world. That is the pinnacle of our sport right now, and it fails to do that. So, and why? Because they don't have a watchable version of the sport. And this is something which is really frustrating for me, because something that the arm wrestling, the audience, there's certainly a huge audience there. We see that online. We see the channels that are involved with East versus West and now King of the Table, that family of promotions. the numbers are huge, and anybody that's associated with that gets a bump in their channel numbers. Coach Ray was heavily involved. You see his numbers really grow. Now Ryan Stump back in there. You might see the same happen there. You see your Engen's channel. I mean, that's a big channel too. So and all the sycophants in the arm wrestling commentary influential world, all of those people that they just cover East versus West. That's basically their jobs now. They're not really paying a whole lot of attention to what's going on in the broader arm wrestling community. Why? Because they largely get ignored when they try and cover anything else. So this is the pinnacle of the sport, and this is where all the attention, this is where all the influences, this is where all the channels are putting all of their energy. And guess what? They're putting all their energy, all their eggs into a failing basket. This is a failing house of cards, and this is really unfortunate. So and why? Because those people making the decisions are putting their eggs into the pay-per-view basket, and it's the wrong basket. That's, I guess, my rant for now. But do you agree, Hollywood Matt Connelly? Have you got any thoughts on any of that?
I think you're absolutely correct. I mean, the whole point of what we're doing, it's in the name, arm wrestling entertainment. We're trying to make this as entertaining and as consumable to watch as possible. And I want to have a video that I could show to somebody, and maybe I'm talking about arm wrestling. I'm like, hey, here, check this out. And I can show them something that is amazing, and maybe it's a minute long, and it might be an absolute war between two guys. And it's very simple for them to understand what's happening. It's like, well, he's trying to pin him. He's trying to pin him. Okay, I get that. And now let's see. Oh, geez, they're really going for it here. They don't know the techniques and everything, but they can immediately appreciate what they're seeing, as opposed to they start and then, oh, hang on, stop everything. We'll restart that. Yeah, your elbow come up like a micro foul, so we've got to start everything over again. It's like, what happened? Why did they start it? It's like, oh, I don't know, there's an elbow foul, I guess.
That's right. There was a bee sting in between the elbow and the pad, and that changed the world. So it's I'll cite the example the other night. I was talking. I was at a charity ball event, and I was sitting with one of the ambassadors for the organization, and unbeknownst to me, he was quite a prominent media personality. And when the topic came up of somebody just mentioned, oh, arm wrestling, Dave's involved in arm wrestling, his ears kind of pricked up and said, oh, what do you do? And I kind of explained what AWE did and the events that we'd held and what it was all about. And it was like he was actually engaged and interested, from that media perspective of, oh, okay, so who watches this? Like, what's the audience? Where are the people? How popular is this? What's going on in the world? So I was kind of feeding him all of the information, as arm wrestling fans do. As soon as anybody pays a little bit of attention to arm wrestling, but what was really good was I was able to whip out the phone and just tap on our last event. Well, it was the Brett versus Rickett match actually, and I was able to bring it up, and there was no, like, it was really loud in the venue, but I was able to just to play, and it was like maybe a few minutes, and it was and in that few minutes, he was able to see a setup, and I was able to understand that. There was a slip, so I was able to explain that, and then there was a real war going on between them because that match was, it was 4-0, but it was 4 wars, Oh, there we go, right on. Oh, well, there you go. And what he was surprised about, he was like, oh, so who shot this? This looks really professional. Was this on TV, or where can I see this? Oh, is this just on YouTube? Like, oh, okay, so it looks professional. These guys look serious. Like, these are athletes. You can tell. They're strong guys. They're big guys. They're so he got to see all of the elements of the sport within a few minutes. And so now I've walked away with a snapshot as to what it's all about. And I just think, how awful would it have been if I had to go show him, that 11-minute setup at East versus West that went absolutely bloody nowhere. And that was the bit that I zipped out. But I could have picked any 3 minutes of that particular video, and I could, and it would have basically, he would have got the same kind of conclusions. I mean, and look at this, look at this. So I was able to let him know what the back and forth here was, how both athletes are engaging, back pressure, and how, we've got Rick there is trying to, pronate and roll his arm through, and now Brett's now coming in for the press, and he was, so you can move, you can do this, you can go, I thought it would just be sideways. These guys are really using their body. And so it's great to be able to have a format of the sport that in a snapshot you can show a normie, somebody who's had no prior exposure to the sport, and they completely get it. And my fear is that version of the sport that's held up as the pinnacle right now does not do that, and that's why it's failing. That's why it's not getting on TV. If it did get on TV, nobody bloody watch it. And that's why there's a reason, that no one's sitting through 3 or 4 hours of that,
Right.
it's not there. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, this was fantastic. It was well shot, high production values. And there's a lot of promotions in the world at the moment doing some things right, and I would like to think we're one of the promotions that's doing some things right. Some have some really interesting points of difference when it comes to the table or their rule set, but let themselves down when it comes to the production values and the presentation of the sport. Others, look fantastic on screen and do a great job of that, but let themselves down in other respects in terms of the formatting and the rule set.
Yeah.
So we there's still pieces of puzzle that need to come together for this sport to congeal into a really highly watchable form. But I think a lot of those pieces of puzzle are ready to be put together now, and that's a really exciting thing. It's ready to be put together. Somebody is going to come up with the alchemy, the secret sauce, bring it together, and it's going to be that promotion that's going to earn the viewers, the normies, and pull in the mainstream audience and the sponsorship dollars. That is really what it's going to take in order for a Rickett Borman to give up his job and just be an arm wrestler full time. So Todd Hutchins doesn't have to worry about going back to being an engineer anymore. He can just travel the world arm wrestling. This is where we want the sport to be.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it will get there, and especially the fact that the growth has been enormous. I mean, since I started 6 years ago, just where arm wrestling was when I started to where it is now, the amount of promotions that have popped up around the world, the amount of opportunities that are out there for athletes to be making actual money, as opposed to even say 10 years ago when it was like, okay, if you win the biggest tournament that's out there, here's a plastic trophy and a handshake.
Yeah.
So the ability to make real money, that it's being seen as a professional sport. The athletes are training specifically for arm wrestling, and that is what they do as their sport. They don't have that as a side gig. Oh, I do boxing and this and that, and I also do some arm wrestling, but no, now it's all on arm wrestling.
Yeah.
And they're the guys that are hitting those elite levels because they are able to dedicate that amount of time and effort into the sport. So you're seeing not only the quality of the athlete improving, but the quality of the promotions and the productions that are all trying to find the perfect element. And as you said, I mean, there's certain things that we've changed to appeal to that mainstream audience, which are different rule sets. We do run with running fouls. We do ignore tiny little elbow micro pops. We do allow the athletes to find their own grip if they're happy with it, whatever the grip is. If you guys are happy, we'll start you, and essentially what we want is that the athletes start and then they finish the round and we get a winner. We don't want to see consistent restarts and, somebody pinned, but this and something else, and we have to start it all over because the audience is confused. Like, why are they doing that? This guy clearly won. Like, why do we have to go again? So,
and I really want to publicly acknowledge and accredit this rule set to you, Hollywood Matt Connelly, as well, because you've given this a great deal of thought, and through your experiences just at a local level and at the club, you've been iterating, refining these ideas and concepts for some time. And I mean, I'm sure some people know that you're an actor and that you come from an entertainment background, and but also that you are a UFC historian officially, and that and that have really looked at combat sports from the perspective of what it's taken to get it from being obscure to being mainstream, and you have kind of charted the course of these various promotions over the last 25-30 years, and have kind of seen where they've made mistakes, where the wheels have come off, where promotions have fizzled and failed away and others have soared, and you've tried to take those lessons and apply them to our sport. And with your rule set that you've developed, that is now enshrined as the AWE rule set, which it's best encapsulated as it should be the Hollywood Matt Connelly rule set, really. But you have done that with a great deal of consideration and understanding also that there's going to be purists that are in the arm wrestling world who are going to poo-poo certain aspects of what it is that you're doing. But one thing that you can't charge you with is not being completely considered in each and every one of those rules. You've definitely weighed up the value of a micro foul and the extent of how much that makes the difference. You've also weighed up the watchability of, do both athletes have to start like that if they're both happy to start like this? If they're both happy to be in a hook, is there anything wrong in that? Where you've looked at points of fairness, and I think this is that naturally egalitarian Australian nature. It's of a fair go. It's where if you come to an agreement with your mate or your adversary on, sometimes it's the same thing in arm wrestling. But if you come to an agreement to start like this and you're both happy to start like that, then guess what, guys? We're going to let you start like that. It's that freedom that we really love here in this country, in order to kind of do those things and to push back against the completely superfluous and unnecessary, and cast away those traditions and hard and fast rules that don't serve us well. But also, so culturally, that's where it's coming from, but also with half an eye to entertainment. So you've taken into account all of these considerations, and then you've applied them in a practical sense at a local level and seen that it's worked, and iterated the concept until we've come up with that rule set that you just splashed on screen, which is available on the AWE website for anybody to peruse and any clubs to adopt should they so want. If you're running a promotion or a local competition and you don't have a rule set at the ready, and you want to have a nice free flowing event that normal people can understand and relate to, then just simply download the AWE rule set that Hollywood Matt Connelly has laid out for you, and just simply adopt that, and you'll have a successful event.
Absolutely, yeah, appreciate that. Yeah, for sure. So there was a couple of comments here on running fouls. Lucky from the Lucky Ones podcast here says that she loves AWE. The only thing that I'm not a fan of is running fouls because I don't understand them. And also, the arm historian has said that he has never pulled under a running foul system, but he'd love to try it. The running foul system, I'm a big proponent of and a huge fan of, because it allows the match to continue. And as I said before, we want to see that they start and we get a finish, we get a result. So if you're about to be pinned, you're in the losing spot, and you lift your arm and it's a foul, but you get pinned, you've lost. You don't get a restart. There's no like, oh, I'm going to get out of jail free here by just fouling. So it depends on the type of foul, and this is not to get technical, but just from an entertainment aspect, if somebody's got their arm on the pad and it pops like that, like there's no advantage by doing that. You'd have not done anything that's going to allow you to get an advantage over your opponent. Just let it go. Don't call it. Keep going. If it's significant, like they've gone forwards like that, then sure, okay, they've got an advantage from that. Referee's going to say, running foul, keep going. Like, keep pulling. Yes, they got an advantage. If you're the guy who didn't foul and you get pinned, you get a restart. But if you do win, you win. Like, if you're about to pin the guy and he fouls, too bad for him, you still get the win. So that way you get the start, you get a finish. as
And
opposed.
the other thing, and this wasn't exposed in our last event at all, as a matter of fact. So this was really surprising. But what is available to our athletes is the ability to appeal a pin or a decision. And so, for instance, if an athlete did bobble up a little bit higher than what the ref acknowledged in the heat of the moment, and that athlete believed that they lost as a result of that, then they can appeal to the head umpire, to the head ref, and it'd be up to the head referee to make a determination. Yep, okay, that was probably a little bit more than a micro foul. Yep, that appeal, we're going to carry that. Let's call that a foul and restart. Now, that's the other intriguing thing. Like there isn't that appeals process available to the athletes in a WAF event, for instance, or in any of the other promotions that we've seen. I think Knuckles Up might have adopted that concept. I won't say stole that idea from us, but I will say adopted the concept. But you know, so there is that opportunity. So when and what we're actually doing there is in some part also entrusting the referee with you know, and I guess you've got to trust your referee to, you know, to in those moments, you know, to maintain the spirit of the event and the competition. And so what you want is for the referee to be empowered to make those judgments as to, you know what, I'm going to let this go. In my determination, I don't think there was an advantage had there. And if Tim Graham's saying that, you know what? Tim Graham is 99.9% of the time going to be right on that as well. You know, that's the reality. But in the event that he's not, and the athlete feels hard done by, they can appeal the decision. It gets looked over. We look at the replays. The head referee makes the judgment, and whatever that guy says, and that's normally Hollywood Matt Connelly as well. Then that's the determination, and then we move forward from there. So again, it's encouraging freedom, but at the same time, imbibing fairness into that process, and that's that balance that Hollywood Matt Connelly has worked really hard to instill in the AWE rule set.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't all me. I mean, we obviously there was the three of us that put these things together to make sure that we were happy with these rules and wanting to run an event under them. So, but yes, definitely those elements.
Mostly.
Well, those elements came about through watching other promotions and saying, I don't like this or I don't like that, and let's change our rule set so we don't have to put up with that. And the replay one came about through Michael Todd, and I think it was it
Yeah.
WAF? Well,
No, it was. I think it was an East versus West.
yeah, where he
Yeah,
couldn't
it was
he what
whinging the whole time. This was before AWE2, I think, and yeah, he was just, and he was appealing to the promoter. He was appealing to Engen,
everyone.
the ref, anybody who would listen. It was pissing and whinging, carrying on, and it was just awful for the sport. I mean, if you were somebody watching arm wrestling for the first time and you saw that behavior, you'd think, what the hell is this schmozzle? Like, why is the athlete trying to bully the ref? Who is he to appeal to the promoter? Come on here, you got to see this. Just outrageous, outrageous. You'd never see that in any codified, regulated sport in the world. It looked super amateurish. And I think it was at that point that we might have said, we're just going to have instant replays,
Yeah,
and then the decision is going to be made. And when we made that decision, it just seemed completely natural, because just that decision alone would have circumvented that
yeah.
and would have made that event so much more professional. It's actually genuinely a surprise to me they haven't picked it up since, because you know that this is it's another step in the right direction, and I think this is where East versus West is maybe calcified a little bit. You know, their monopoly over being the premier promotion has led to them calcifying around certain aspects. That's meant that they've not felt the need to evolve and move forward. And in certain areas that would be better and make the sport more watchable, because they've got a monopoly over the attention from the fans of the sport, not really understanding now that the fan base, yes, it's growing and it will continue to grow, but it's not going to grow to the extent in the medium term that that is needed in order to attract mainstream money in. So
Absolutely, I completely agree. Should we go to the comments and
Let's do that.
all
That's a
right.
great idea.
It is. There we go. Well, David Jansen was the first person up. He won the first comment of the night. Congratulations to David Jansen from Canada, doing his own podcast up there, promoting arm wrestling, doing a tremendous job. Lucky from the Lucky Ones podcast is in. She says morning and evening. She's covering all bases here. Well done to you, Lucky. Thank you very much for that. Kiwi Sam from the SA Titans Arm Wrestling Club. He says, a good way to open the weekend. The WAF rules are very strict and can be very underwhelming for seeing incredibly talented athletes have a great match. Never understood athletes celebrating a win on fouls. Yes, absolutely.
How do you explain that? How do you
Yeah,
explain that to somebody watching the sport for the first time?
yeah. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, they moved their hand like that in the setup, so that means I win.
Oh, yeah. What a glorious victory.
Yes.
Yeah. That'll build your legacy. Yeah.
That's right. Francois Stip is in. He says 100% he was agreeing with your rant against the boring styles that we have seen previously, and we did address that comment there from Lucky. Kiwi Sam says complaining about the refing while never actually being in the position is the same as complaining about food before you even eat it. Oh, yeah. And Lucky says that she did a ref certification just so she could be accurate in how much she dislikes some refs. At least you know what you're talking about there, Lucky. Francois Stip says, thank you for talking about this. This is the way for sure. The arm historian is also in with his hand pink waving, whatever that is. But it is the arm historian. Great to see him in here. And Phil Woody, of course, from the UK, has jumped in as well. He shared the AWE YouTube channel, which
Thank you, sir.
if you can go over and click subscribe on that channel, it does help enormously for us. RHCP has also jumped in, the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Huge Ryan Bowen fan he is. And he says, good morning. Friday morning, you handsome son of a bitch, Matt. Throw them up. Throw them up, son. Throw them up. We did throw them up for you.
Go on. Do it one more time.
All right.
Oh, look at that. Look at that.
I'll do it because he's a big Ryan Bowen fan. He hates Ryan. That's the Arm Historian is doing fantastic videos, and yes, we should all check out the Arm Historian's content. He does a tremendous job over there on his channel. Very in depth. If you have any interest in the topics that he has there, you will find out every single thing that has happened regarding that.
And is it right that you were on the Arm Historian's channel commentating on the Dream League over there? Is that right? The Fantasy League?
That's right. Yeah. So this
fantastic.
Yeah, it was great fun. So the Arm Historian has put together a fantasy league, and it's a double elimination tournament, first to one. But the viewers voted in the all-time greatest arm wrestlers, and so we've got, I think, was it eight people, 10 people, something like that. So yeah, it's and everyone is in their prime. So
wow.
So you're looking at, okay, well, prime John Brzenk versus prime Rustam Babayev, like who's going to win that match, you know? And then you sort of try to come up with scenarios for how that would play out, and the chat will vote on who they think will move through to the next round. So
very cool.
Yeah, it's really good. So he does that over a couple of weeks, and the tournament will play all the way through, and you get to see who will be considered the absolute best of all time in arm wrestling. But it is first to one, which is an interesting element, and it's a tournament format, so might be a different winner than what you think.
I think that's a topic for another podcast: tournaments versus super matches. You know, what's best? I think I'd be really interested to see what the fans have got to say about that, and if it's a tournament, what style of tournament. It seems to me that the Americans love a massive tournament, don't they? They love sticking 400 people in a room and spending all weekend just arm wrestling away on 15 tables on a stage. That's their idea of a great event. And of course, you know, with super matches. Actually, I didn't have any idea until just recently that that's the invention of Neil Pickup. the
Oh
super
yeah,
match format.
is it?
So, well, either that or he's bullshitting and nobody was calling him out on it. Oh, vintage super match. Like,
Like, oh, all right, yeah,
what?
sure,
Yeah,
Neil.
right. Okay, put man on the moon. Nice
Oh
years ago. It's a
yeah.
big bit. But yeah. But no. So we do have these various forms of arm wrestling, and I would love to put it up for a podcast. Subject where we talk about the pros and cons and what it is and what style of event, if it is a tournament that people think is more watchable, and we've experimented ourselves, so we've got our own thoughts on it, but super keen to see what people have to think about that. So maybe we'll talk about that next week.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that is because Arm Gods is doing different things with their stuff as well. They've got I can't remember the name that they've it's not King of the Table, but it's sort of similar to Warzone or something.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was like first to 10 wins, but you've got to
Mm.
stay on if you win. And
Yeah.
yeah, so that was really interesting to watch that because obviously the guys get fatigued, and
It's like our last man standing event from a
it's
couple
sort
of
of
years ago.
similar. Yeah, a
Yeah,
little bit
right.
similar. But
Yeah.
it was cool because you see these guys who are just wrecking everyone at the start, and they get 5 or 6 pins like it's nothing. But then they start to gas,
Yeah.
and it's like they only need one more pin to get through, and they just cannot get it because they're too exhausted. So yeah, it's very very unique, and
Yeah. And
that isn't.
watchable,
Yeah,
a really watchable format as well. I would imagine that
yeah.
that would be thoroughly entertaining.
It was. I've only seen it once, but I know they do it regularly. But yeah, that's another format that's out there. Your tournaments, your single elimination, your double elimination, the super match stuff, the last man standing stuff that we've done. Yeah, there's a lot of different ways that arm wrestling can be presented apart from just the standard super match.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. Any more comments before we go away?
The arm historian is just asking. So I think when you said about Neil Pickup, and he may have been the curator of the Supermatch, he says yes and no. You could argue he was amongst the first to do the modern Supermatch format, but there
Mm-hmm.
have been set up in advanced matches for decades now, mainly traveling strongmen challenging local arm wrestlers.
Well, that kind of makes sense with Neil's background in strongman and having been around both sports for a long time. I'm sure he's a very creative human being, and he would have kind of pieced that together as a style. And so we would say that Neil Pickup is the father of the modern super match.
Well, that's fair.
So. Yeah, I think that's fair analysis, and maybe the subject of a historian video into the future as well. So there's
and maybe for all the monetization of that video to go straight to us.
Maybe.
It's gone from that to this.
Yeah.
It started here, and now it's slowly evolved.
Anything else there in the comments before we go away?
I think that's probably all
That's
the comments.
probably it. Okay, well, I guess that's it then for the podcast for tonight, and some food for thought. I guess. Hollywood Matt Connelly, things to look forward to this weekend. You've been keeping your eye on the locals making their way over to is Istanbul this weekend for King. Is King of the Table now just East versus West light? Is it like the reserves? Is it like the B side? What is King of the Table now? Has it completely lost its identity since being absorbed into the Robert Baxter Empire, arm wrestling empire? Is that what's happened?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why they've still got it around.
I don't think they know what they're doing with it, to be honest with you.
It doesn't make a
It's
lot of sense to me because it's like if they've bought it out, then why don't just absolve it into East versus West? Like you're still
yeah.
running it as King of. It's like why? But
Mm.
it does, like is not the results for King of the Table, are they counted towards East versus West? Like what? Yeah, so
I
it's a
would have
bit
thought that would have
confusing.
been a really, really good maintaining the King of the Table brand as a certainly having some matchups there, but the less serious ones, maybe and I guess that's where King of the Table cut its teeth was it was moving in that entertainment world where you were getting some interesting matchups, and I guess they did with Brian and Brian Shaw and Eddie Hall. You know,
Yeah.
that was one of those. But we also saw that with, you know, the emergence of Khaled and his matches. It seems to be you know, it could have been a more fun, almost light-hearted,
Mm.
less serious kind of interlude between, you know, the more hardcore East versus West matches. And from a brand positioning perspective, it's hard to know how King of the Table now fits in, apart from, is it just East versus West light? Is it just like a fill in between East versus West? It kind of feels like that. It doesn't feel discernibly different at the moment. But you know, whatever it is, it's more arm wrestling. That's great for arm wrestling fans. But I think it might even be potentially in its current format cannibalizing a little bit from East versus West, or maybe not serving. It's maybe, is it meant to be a springboard into East versus West for some of those athletes, or home for some of those guys that are on the rise, or maybe are dropping out? I don't know. I don't know. Certainly Todd Hutchins' presence at that event and several other big names probably indicates that's not entirely the case, because you've still got certainly some heavy hitters on that card. But it's yeah, I'd be curious if anybody knew and was able to share what it is that is going on there. Arm Historian comments that he agrees having the two leagues split just leads to confusion and for newer viewers. Although I agree that it would be kind of fun for King of the Table to focus on the entertainment matches. Yeah, agreed. You know, I think that was maybe been a lost opportunity. I don't know if that is in part because that was the direction they were going in before Engen's involvement, before he got his hands on the matchmaking side of things more so. And then when Engen took it took on that more East versus West style of you know, the matches did become that bit more serious and had to be for ranking or positioning or for a hierarchy, and not just for the fun entertainment aspect of it, which I don't know if Engen completely gets. I think he understands how to put together great matches, don't get me wrong, and I think he knows exactly what the arm wrestling public's appetite is at any point in time. There's no doubt. But when it comes to what makes sense in attracting fresh eyeballs to the sport, I'm not so sure. And I really think that's King of the Table under Core Sports auspices, when they were in full control of that promotion. They had more of a feel for definitely the entertainment side of things. And it's a sorry loss, I think, to the sport that those types of creative minds don't have their hands all over that anymore. And it's now just found its way almost like the second less loved brother of East versus West.
Yes, the stepchild, the red-headed stepchild.
Yeah.
There's a great comment here from Lagio. It says that, in his opinion, we need a rebrand of the entire promotion. East versus West as a name has become expired. Imagine if the UFC was called North versus South or something like that. Yeah, yeah.
It does have its own limitations, doesn't it? Because, you know, we all understood where that was coming from, you know, 3 or 4 years ago, where, you know, there was we've got to take the best from the East and the best from we've got to find out, we've got to answer these questions. But we've answered those questions now for the most part. I do like the sensibility of giving the Eastern athletes a platform against the Western athletes, so that the Western market, which is, there's no money in the Eastern markets. Okay. So, you know, India is the biggest market in the world. No one's buying anything of any value to a Western company. So for Western money to go behind an Eastern promotion is really hard. Where it can work, and the pool of talent in arm wrestling in the West is not deep enough to sustain an event or in its own at a world-class level. So you do need this cross-pollination, this geographical cross-pollination between the East and the West. But at a serious level, at the top of the sport, I think we know what the answers are now. And that East versus West has East West versus West. Again, you know, for arm wrestling fans, we kind of know where that's coming from and what that means. But from a normie mainstream casual's perspective, that branding doesn't make any sense. So I 100% agree with you, Lagia, on that one. I do feel like that it's past its use by date, but also it's really hard for people that when they're at the pinnacle, when they're at the top, to pivot. They've got no real reason to, and why change course now? They've got the athletes, they've got a solid fan base. They can sell out a room. They can do all of those things that that 5 years ago would have been thought of as unheard of. So they're kind of there. So really hard for those guys now. And if Robert Baxter didn't buy East versus West, what that name, what did he actually buy? There's not a stadium. There's not a rule set he owns. There's no TV rights. There's no like what is it like? From what I understand, the contract situation is a bit like people. Everybody's there because they want to be on the best show on earth, and that's where the biggest opportunities are in the sport. Currently, it's the pinnacle of the sport. But what did he buy? So why wouldn't he have just started something else? So I mean, obviously he's got a great matchmaker, an Engen. He didn't buy a fantastic production outfit or anything like that. So what did he buy? He bought East versus West, and I think if whatever he's paid for that, he's going to want to I leverage that for at least a little while until he can parlay it into something else, or until it completely runs its commercial course and it no longer has viability. And we might be a bit early in calling that that's going to be the case, but I think ultimately, like you are correct. It does call for some kind of change there, and you might even see it there, but I don't actually see them doing that voluntarily. Not unless they get bought out or somebody comes to them and says this is not marketable the way it is, for us to be able to broadcast this, and we're going to need to change things up a little bit.
Yeah, it is restrictive in many ways that they put that title in their name, because like when people like Lock On Adair compete on there, or they go, well, which side is he representing? Is he representing East or West? Because he's from the South.
Can't get much further east than, and the cultural distinctions aren't quite there when you got Mate Arangi or somebody like that who's from New Zealand, which is as far east as you can get in a Western democracy,
Right.
but from an indigenous culture. So what are we talking about here?
Which one does he fit into?
All of them.
Right.
I don't know. It's definitely built with kind of Eastern Europe, Western world in mind. Now the arm wrestling world, of course, has expanded much more beyond that. Anyway, I think we've answered the question with respect to that. I will, with the team, with Robert Baxter's team, kind of work on that and evolve that brand. Maybe we'll see. Time will tell.
Absolutely, completely agree. I think we're probably ready to wrap things up. Thanks everyone for writing the comments. We had some great ones in there today, some awesome people that have jumped in, and we very much appreciate that. We do have a big event coming up on the 22nd of June, and that is the Brett Coots versus Matai Warangi Hetamoris for the Intercontinental AWE Intercontinental title. And that is going to be an absolutely gigantic event, a huge matchup, and it's going to be part of the Diamondback Fighting Championship event.
Indeed, in front of 1,000 combat sports fans at the hallowed Adelaide Oval. This will be a spectacular event, Hollywood Matt Connelly, and maybe one more announcement still to come with respect to that event. So you can get your tickets right now if you do want to be there in person. You can certainly do so, and if you maybe even buy yourself a front row ticket or find yourself in the VIP section, then you might find yourself seated next to Lee Priest, legendary arm wrestler, legendary bodybuilder. And there you go. Look at that promo poster, and thank you, Angie, who put together this poster for us. And what a fantastic poster this truly is. You can see the two big men there. AWE Intercontinental Belt on the line Sunday, June 22nd. Head over to Diamondback. FC.com for the pay-per-view. That the link is not available just yet, but it will be available in the next week or two. We'll certainly let you know all about that. So if you can't be there in person, then you can still buy the pay-per-view and watch that. And if you now we did just finish off saying the pay-per-view format is dead. It is like basically it's a combat sports event that's already being televised. So if you want to watch it's a multi-discipline combat sports event that will have Muay Thai in the cage, K1 in the cage. You're going to see, of course, MMA and now arm wrestling as part of that smorgasbord of combat sports that'll be going on the 22nd as part of Diamondback Fighting Championships event. But they are broadcasting that on their website. And so if you are keen, you can certainly jump on and buy the pay-per-view when the time is right. Or you can buy tickets now by heading over to diamondbackfc.com and secure your tickets to be there in person.
Absolutely. There you go. Fantastic. All right. Well, we might leave it there. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Dave Stockbridge. We finished with a nice little double bicep. One last one, just to make sure that the lawyers are very, very happy with that. Look out. Dave's got his one there as well, looking beefy. The shirt is just hanging on. All right. This is the stalling part where I find the outro video. There it is. All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.